Good morning. Hi, Heather.
Hi, Dr. Blaskovich. How are you?
Good, good. Thanks for doing this, and wanted to just jump right into it and sort of give a summary as to my understanding of your background is that you were diagnosed with cervical spine instability, potentially connective tissue disorder, Ehlers-Danlos type instability, and ligament laxity, and you underwent numerous therapies. Only, I guess, to summarize, to find out that you also had a toxicity problem, I believe mold related, and that in addressing that aspect of your problem, you ended up obtaining very, very beneficial results. Does that about summarize it?
Yeah, there's more to it, but yeah, that summarizes it. I was diagnosed with Lyme, also undiagnosed Lyme, for 22 years. So they blame that on a lot of the ligament, what we were calling ligament laxity.
Hmm.
But we didn't do any tests for the ligament laxity. It was more that the fact that I did not hold an adjustment and I would go out of alignment just by standing for like 2 minutes in one
Hmm.
place. My vertebrae would go out of alignment in my low back, and upper cervical issues too. But that was sort of how the diagnosis came about, was just
Okay.
that I needed to go to the chiropractor 3 times a week
Yeah.
for 8 years, and my symptoms.
So what led you, I guess, to going down the path of thinking, could this be a toxicity mold related problem, and what was the, I guess, the aha moment, and then what did you do with that?
I never, sadly, I'm a functional health coach. In health coaching school, we were not taught environmental illness. So it was not my idea. Another health coach who actually had chronic inflammatory response syndrome and mold toxicity reached out to me. And I had started to develop autoimmune diseases like Graves' disease, and the Lyme disease had resurfaced during COVID. And she said, I'm just wondering if you're being exposed to a water damaged building. And I had just moved to the desert in
Hmm.
Arizona in a new home. And I'm like, there's no water damage. It's a new home. But it made me remember that in my home in Pennsylvania, we had a water leak, a very big one, where we had 6 inches of water in our finished basement. And I thought, wow, like all of us, my son, my husband, all developed health problems soon after that. And so then I did research on what do I need to do, to see, do I have this toxicity issue? And I had blood work done. There's a visual contrast sensitivity test that people can do, and we can put it, in a link. It's a cheap $15 test to check if there's inflammation on the optic nerve and when there's toxicity, especially related to Lyme, like biotoxin, waste products from a bacteria, or from mycotoxins. The optic nerve will get inflamed and it'll impair contrast that we see on a computer screen. And I failed it. And so did, so that's a great place for people to start. And it's
So
a
it's a $15 computer test where you have visual stimuli that your eyes have to respond to.
Yeah, you're just looking at lines that are like this
Uh-huh.
way, that way, and they're like different shades of gray.
Yep.
And I thought, oh, this is so easy. And then all of a sudden, I'm not seeing the lines on the screen at all.
Now, what
Um,
does that what does that diagnose? Just optic nerve pathology, or is it specific for this type of problem, or is it, what's the differential diagnosis, I guess?
it's used as a precursor. They ask you some questions about exposure to biotoxins and mold. So if
Okay.
people fail it, I mean, as a health coach, if people fail that test and they've got symptom clusters from different systems of the body, 5 symptoms from three different systems of the body, that's enough for me to feel comfortable saying they have SIRS. But a lot of people want the blood work, and they need to see it in black and white. And then I'll send them a link to the blood work, or what to ask their doctor to test for. And then the blood work is 6 different markers that are inflammatory markers, that are unusual inflammatory markers like TGF beta, MMP9. They're also looking if genetically you can detox mold or Lyme. We don't know if that gene is turned on or off, but if someone can't detox mycotoxins and they can't detox Lyme biotoxins and they've been exposed, their body can't get rid of those toxins. And
Okay.
Yeah. So
So
that,
it's not just C-reactive protein. There's multiple inflammatory markers that are being tested.
yeah. And it's not C-reactive protein isn't in the panel. Like that's actually a more traditional test
Right,
that
right.
doctors know about. This is very specialized in the mold, Lyme and chronic inflammatory response syndrome world. But what I'd like to say is you can have chronic inflammatory response syndrome, but it doesn't have to be from Lyme. It doesn't have to be from mold. It can just be your toxic bucket has overflowed from all different exposures in life. Somebody
Okay.
could, I go into the hair salon and I smell all the chemicals that are being used. And one of the owners of the salon I go to, she's got all these health issues. And I really believe it is related to toxicity where she's working, or somebody works in a paint store and they're getting all those chemical fumes and those chemicals into their body. And the body can struggle. I mean, it's designed to detox, but we're exposed to so much today, so much more than I think we even realize in our food supply and our skincare, our hair care. Um,
What do you think is, obviously there's people that work in those environments. Asbestos comes to mind to me. You have people who are exposed to asbestos for a long period of time, and some develop, mesothelioma and end up, succumbing to that problem, and other ones don't. Do you think the missing link is mental state? Is it diet? Is it supplementation? Is it leisure activities, happiness, sadness? What do you think is the, genetics?
I think genetics plays a big role in terms of many people are predisposed to have issues with detox, MTHFR. This HLA-DR gene is the one we look for in mold and Lyme. So I think that plays a big role.
Now, is it the
I-
actual, is it the actual pathogen that changes the genetic makeup of the person, or is it something else that does
well,
that? Like, do they inherit it, or is it sort of acquired, if you will?
Well, genetically, I think we inherit our genetics, but what we do in terms of our lifestyle and how we eat is what can turn on and off our genes.
That's the epigenetic
Um,
component.
right.
Yeah.
So to me, and I was a dietitian before I became a health coach, what we eat and what we're exposed to and decreasing the burden to our body is so huge in supporting our body in terms of detox. I truly believe a lot of people are going around, they're diagnosed with labels. And I had 20 labels on a piece of paper of all these illnesses. And those labels have disappeared as I've addressed toxicity, and traditional practitioners aren't, they're not trained in environmental illness. I wasn't trained in environmental illness. So I think a lot of people are being treated for symptoms and managing illnesses that they're not addressing the root cause. And that's
Yeah.
always what we want to do as practitioners, is address the root.
And environmental includes chemical, correct?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. It's not just mold, and it's not
Right.
just paint fumes, and it's really gradually not stressing about it, trying to decrease our exposure to what we're putting in our body,
Right.
what we're putting on our body, and supporting our body to open up those detox pathways so it can do what God designed it to do,
Right.
which is detox.
Okay, so then you had the blood panel done, and then after that, tell me what the results were, first of all, if you recall, and then how you then what you were able to then do with that, or who you went to do something about it.
Yeah, well, I actually had to go to a Lyme mold chronic inflammatory response syndrome doctor. I went to a shoemaker, and in the mold world, people know the name Shoemaker. He's the one who came up with this testing. And so I did not detox Lyme or mold. And they basically, if you have 3 of the 6 inflammatory markers are out of range, you're diagnosed with chronic inflammatory response syndrome. And I was diagnosed with that. And I then went on like a Shoemaker modified protocol. I do muscle testing, so does my practitioner. So we muscle tested for what binders my body wanted to pull out toxins. When I started the protocol, like I was going to the chiropractor 3 times a week. I had that ligament laxity instability, and I had a whole host of digestive issues, nerve pain. I was disabled. I was just super disabled. I started on the protocol and I was down to 10 foods that I could eat. And there were no shifts in 5 months, other than I was having detox symptoms and I was really frustrated. And I was probably most frustrated that my diet was so limited. And
And that's the initial part of the protocol, is basically a dietary change.
no, I was down to 10 foods because of the damage the toxicity had done to my gut.
So you were
Yeah.
allowed to eat 10 foods,
Well, I had 10 that I could tolerate.
tolerate. And
So
then
it's
can
very,
you
yeah.
explain the muscle testing? What is that? So do you hold a particular object or chemical in your hand and then test which muscle and what's the
Um,
response you're looking
yeah, I
for?
mean, chiropractors are the ones who are usually really good at this. And
So applied kinesiology basically is what we're.
yeah,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I learned to do nutrition response testing like chiropractors do, but you're scanning the body for organs on people. I'm a health coach. I don't like touching people's
Mhm.
bodies. And for myself, I couldn't do that. So I learned the O-ring technique.
Okay.
Where I'm going in and I can say, is my name Heather? And this should stay nice and strong. And if I say, is my name Sasha, it gets weak right away. So
Right.
I can ask if my body needs a product, wants a product, benefits from a product. I can even ask if an organ is struggling and needs support. I've gotten good at it. I've been doing it for almost 3 years, and I muscle test everything that I put
So
in.
the innate within the body, once you've consciously asked it, do you need zinc or do you need whatever, the innate in the body is able to then create a neurophysiologic response where it'll actually be strong versus weak.
Right.
And if you
Yeah,
ask yourself, are you Heather or Sasha? Obviously, when you ask yourself if you're Sasha, you're lying to yourself. And so the channel's open and you're not strong, or closed, whatever, and you're not strong
right.
anymore. Okay.
Yeah, and it works long distance. It's pretty amazing. I've been able to do it with clients. And then it makes it easier for us to decide what their body needs and wants, not me just guessing as a health coach, and it's a little less trial and error
Mm-hmm.
that way. So we did the muscle testing. I went on the protocol and I didn't get better.
Mm-hmm.
And I met another health coach who had used a whole different approach where they weren't using binders, forcing the body to detox. And I
Can I
started,
just take you back just for 1 sec? What
oh, of
was, you said
course.
you went on the protocol and it wasn't successful. What was the protocol?
Well, for me, I was muscle testing for bentonite clay, for charcoal and ochre pepsin, and we were
Okay.
using those as binders. And that was all we did, was gave me
When you
binders.
say binders, you're trying to chelate toxins out of your body, bind them. Okay. Yep.
Exactly, exactly. And that is the traditional approach to dealing with SIRS, mold toxicity,
Yep.
biotoxin illness, is to give a binder. Um, I could say more.
Feel free.
And what I've learned from my journey is what I feel is missing in the world of SIRS and mold and Lyme is we're not preparing the body, to make sure it's ready to detox, and making sure like the lymphatic system is moving. Because most people were born with a congested lymph system, and the lymph system doesn't have a pump on it. Right. Our heart has a pump, but you have to have exercise and movement. And in people too who are sick, I was disabled, so I wasn't moving. So the lymph system was really stagnant. So lymph massage can become really
Right.
important.
So lymph drainage massage.
Right. And other modalities, it depends on the person. Some people will do sauna, some people can move their body. Sometimes you need herbs to support the lymphatic system. Kidneys are often not filtering toxins in people, and that can take 3 months to a year to happen. And I had to go on herbs to support my lymph and herbs to support my kidneys and bladder. And I'm still on them now, 18 months out, because I'm still detoxing, because I was exposed to mold as a 3-year-old child and didn't know it, and have been just exposed throughout my life, which is a lot of people, we don't see it. 70% of the time you never see
Mm-hmm.
mold in a home. And if you do see it, that's not usually a good sign at all.
Yeah.
So I started on a protocol December 10th, using organic superfoods. And my reason for starting was I was more desperate for nourishment because I was down to the 10 foods that I really had no idea that I could get better, because I had gotten sick at 30 and I was 56 when I started the protocol. I'm now 57. And literally on the third day on the protocol, I was adding in food to my diet that I hadn't been able to touch in 2 years. And every week I was adding in 2 new foods. And that was the first thing I saw. I was detoxing. And by the third month, the ligament laxity was not an issue. Like I was going to the chiropractor. I had done Prolo therapy, Prolozone. I had so many injections, I lost count, 110, like 13 times in Pennsylvania. And then when I moved to Arizona, I lost count. I was just going for Prolozone and we just kept going, hoping it would help me to improve my ability to stand and to function. And it did help a little. Like I was able to stand instead of 2 minutes, 3 or 4 minutes. But I was still disabled. But by 3 months on this protocol, I was still detoxing, but I wasn't disabled anymore. And I didn't have to go to the chiropractor, which was sort of huge after 8 years of 3 times a week. It was very, very expensive. And then like just as time went on, more and more things improved. My ability to stand, to walk.
So you're in essence, to quote unquote, you're able to hold your adjustment.
Yeah, I haven't needed to be adjusted at my upper cervical guy. Every time I go in, he's like, you're still holding. I think it's been like 6 to 9 months. Like I'm not keeping track. I go in to be checked, but he hasn't adjusted me. And I saw a directional non-force chiropractor too. And they were both like weekly. And he hasn't adjusted me in a year. And I've been playing pickleball and like doing things that I literally haven't been able to do in 20 plus years, which is pretty. I was super sick and super disabled for a very long time.
Now, these organic superfoods, are they supplemental, like come in a container, or is it something you go to a natural, food store for, or how do you source that?
They can be purchased on Amazon. I don't recommend people purchase them that way because basically I sell them and people can buy them directly from someone. And when you do that, I'm a health coach, you get support. And you can also return them. You have 60 days to return them if you're not happy. If you buy them from Amazon, there's no support. You can't return them and they're 25% more expensive than when you buy them through someone. But it's an actual protocol of 4 whole organic superfood products that really work very quickly to get the body alkaline, to decrease inflammation in the body, to deeply, deeply nourish the body at a cellular level. And then open up detox pathways and start to detox using things like the spirulina, the chlorella, the grasses in the superfoods, and then fulvic and humic acid, which help to remineralize the gut and pull out glyphosate and other toxins from the gut. But it works. A lot of people like to pick and choose when they have mold or SIRS, but I don't find people get better when they do that. I find like they need this 4-component protocol to really work quickly. And then we teach them how to eat to detox on top of that. So I don't encourage people to eat acidic food that's going to slow down detox. I teach them to eat very alkaline and ways that are going to promote detox in the body, which when you go to a practitioner who treats SIRS, that's not, they just give you binders and other support. But nobody talks about how to eat to help the body detox. It's just not typically I have a wonderful practitioner, but that's just not, that's not the medical model of treating SIRS.
So ultimately, you would be able to have a conversation with somebody remotely like this and run them through some diagnostic protocols to determine what version of the protocol or which supplements they would need to initiate to try to get better. And then obviously you're available for the coaching as they proceed through the process, compared to the Amazon where you just buy the product and try to wing it, right? With some,
right.
some online, whatever forums or something.
Right. And there are Facebook groups. We have a Facebook group for people with SIRS and mold and Lyme that we've designed, and we're 3 health coaches who admin it. And then there's also weekly Q&A with regenerative detox coaches, which I'm knowledgeable about regenerative nutrition and detox, but I'm not certified. I didn't go to school for it. So yeah, there's a lot of help that's really wonderful when I was really sick and struggling. So I took advantage of all of that. And that was huge. in me moving the needle and getting better is having that support and not feeling like you're doing it alone.
Yeah. And now you're part of that, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I
Okay.
mean, I health coach people, but I use these superfoods as a way to make sure people are nourished and detoxing, because the root of all illness um, comes down to nourishment and toxicity and the gut. And these protocols address all of that in a way that's really simple, but we're using whole organic food. It's different. We're not using an isolated manufactured supplement. So you're getting those cofactors that are there in food naturally that, we don't even know about all the cofactors that are in, say, an orange. So I'd rather see someone take whole food vitamin C, where you're getting it from camu berry or acerola cherry versus getting it from ascorbic acid, which has been isolated
Right.
and
And now
manufactured.
what is the product line then that you have used yourself and then I guess recommend now? Is it a
Yeah,
particular brand or how does that?
I affiliated with a company called Purium, which stands for pure and premium, and they've been around for 30 years. I wish I had known about them 30 years ago. I didn't.
Uh-huh.
And I used what was called the ultimate lifestyle transformation. It was like a twice a day where I was taking the shakes twice a day and vegan amino acids and a dark cherry juice, organic cherry juice, and a gut restoration product that was soil based. It's a supplement, but it's from the ground. So it's the only thing I wouldn't call food.
Yeah.
And I did that twice a day for 5 months because I was so sick. Some people do twice a day for a month, sometimes 2 months, and then they go down to once a day as maintenance. But there are different options in there. If people have mast cell histamine issues, there's grain-free protocols that I can do with people. There's sprouted grain protocols. So most people do really well on the ultimate lifestyle transformation, but I usually muscle test people just to verify, what's going to be best. And just my mind as a health coach, if they tell me they're having certain issues, I know what might be better for them. If they're struggling with constipation because they're living in mold, there's choices and options.
Okay. And most people can probably source the whole products wherever they're from.
Um, you mean the
Like
pure?
the sprouted products, or is that something that's also supplied?
Well, that's the products are our products. And I can't speak to other products. I can't tell you, I don't muscle test for products like in the health food stores. And I think the difference is because our products are 100% organic, but they're grown in what's called regenerative soil. And I hadn't really heard the term, but 99% of our soil in the world is depleted. 1% is considered regenerative. So regenerative means it's super nutrient dense. And then when you have nutrient dense soil, that directly means our food is nutrient dense. So they own a lake bed in Utah that's 90 feet deep and like decomposed dead fish and material that they rotate the crops and amend the soil, but it's already really, really fertile soil. And it's 300 miles away from any non-organic farm or any really civilization. So you're
Okay.
not getting, so it's just super, super clean. And I can't speak to that, and how I know I've seen the facility and how they, manufacture the product. So when you add water to the shake, it's like a living, active food because they win dehydrated the day they pick it on the farm. And then they ship it to California where it's made into different powders and shakes. So when you add water, you're actually getting the live active enzymes that help with digestion the first 20 or 30 minutes after you. So it's almost, if someone was a raw vegan, it's a super easy way to do raw food, but it's super easy to digest and assimilate. And I've bought other greens shakes and it's not a protocol and I can't speak, to the nutritional, how organic it is, the soil it's grown in, how
Yeah.
they harvest it. And I actually, now I really believe that's really important.
Mm-hmm.
You go to a store, you buy an apple, even if it's organic, it's usually packed in sometimes those plastic bags. So you're getting the apple's allowed to be sprayed for the first 14 weeks. And then it's picked weeks before it's ripe so that it can ship to you. And I never really thought about it. And then you have no idea about the soil it's grown in. But most foods are so depleted compared to if you looked at 50 years ago. So it's been a very interesting journey. But for people who are really sick, I found this protocol to be, even for people who are healthy, but for people who are really sick, it's been life changing.
Good. And so now you're up to the point where you can literally be upright all day long kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's new. I can cook and clean. And I mean, I hired a cleaning lady 2, 3 years ago when I broke my back, and I can clean my house myself. I choose not to because I'm working. And
Uh-huh.
I didn't work for a lot of years because I was disabled. But I can cook, I can stand. I had assistive devices for 15 years, shower chairs and walkers and wheelchairs. And they're in the garage because I'm getting older in case we ever need them or a neighbor needs them, but I don't need them anymore. And it's still pretty recent. I've been on the protocol 18 months. So I still pinch myself when I go to the store and I can shop at a mall all day long. I haven't been able to do that for 20 years. So it's a whole new level of freedom.
And now how do people get a hold of you if they're curious to find out more about whether or not they might be a candidate, and if they are, what can be done? How do they address that?
Yeah, I would reach out to me right now at healthcoachingbyheather@gmail.com. I have a website address. The website is being redone.
Okay.
So it is healthcoachingbyheather.com. It's just, I don't know if it'll be up for about another month because I'm writing it, it's in process.
Okay.
And I'm on Instagram. Um,
So I guess we can put some of that stuff down into the links below, I guess, so that people can go and search that out for themselves and get a hold of you. Um, what about the product line? You can provide a link to that as well.
Sure, I can provide a link to the product line, and I'm here to answer any questions or do a free discovery call if somebody has health issues or health concerns. I can, guide them to some of those initial tests. But if you're not holding a chiropractic adjustment, or you've been told you have ligament laxity, or cranial, instability, I would look into, have you been exposed to Lyme? Have you been exposed to a water damaged building? Do you have a lot of other symptoms outside of just that symptom?
Mhm.
Irritability, anxiety, nerve pain, um, frequent urination, headaches, because there are these symptom clusters that happen with chronic inflammatory response syndrome. And a lot of times people have been diagnosed with 10, 20 labels and illnesses, but the umbrella and the root cause is toxicity. And so to go in and just focus on, they have hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's, you're not addressing the root. You might help the situation temporarily, but the person doesn't truly get better until we address, the root causes. But I mean, I did prolotherapy and all those things to manage symptoms before we got to the root. I didn't, you don't have a choice. You're looking for answers.
Yeah, because a lot of people do choose to undergo Prolo stem cell procedures, and platelet-rich plasma procedures,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so this would be, I think, depending on the individual and their symptom clusters, this would definitely sound like a logical part of the process for anybody who's dealing with these, instability problems that may have a toxic nature as at least part of the problem, before going, down the road to the end stage, which may be a fusion surgery, right?
Yeah, and what people we forget that our body, even to heal, if ligaments are lax, and I don't think there's like a test for it other than, like you said, like looking at pictures. I know for me it was symptoms. Um, but nutrition plays a key role, right, in nourishing our tendons, our ligaments, our muscles. So the quality of the nutrition we're putting into our body is critical. But if your body too can't absorb, digest well, which a lot of
Uh-huh.
people have gut issues, you're not going to be assimilating that nutrition well. So this is a way, it's like insurance. For me, it wasn't insurance. It was really a medical nutrition
Yeah.
protocol for me, to make sure you're getting that nutrition and nourishment. Our amino acids are vegan and they're 99% bioavailable. They're in the physician's desk reference because they were designed for bedbound cancer patients to put muscle on. And so you eat even plant-based, protein that doesn't get into your system till 90 minutes. And your body has to break it down, digest it, absorb it. This is totally available. So just very, very different. And that's like really important for supporting the ligaments and collagen.
Yeah, so I think this is very fascinating to me because when I do motion x-rays with patients and we discover instability, I mean, I've been searching for at least 25 years for, medical published randomized controlled trials that have no bias in the funding and the research components, where ligament healing, so in the sense where a ligament can actually literally restore itself back to an original length and then an original structure, I haven't found any literature that supports that. So the notion that, there is something, because most of my patients don't fit into a perfect category of, we found, you have ligament instability, and therefore, that's why nothing ever holds. And you're going to, try all sorts of supplementation, all sorts of prolotherapy, stem cells, PRP, physiotherapy. And then at the end of the line, all that's left is technically surgery. And if there is, like I said, nobody really fits into a perfect mold for this that I've seen thus far, myself included, that if there is this, component that maybe addresses inflammation in general in the body and toxicity, that a part of the symptom pattern that is irritating the nervous system, resulting in these umbrella diagnoses that only describe symptoms, there may be a wonderful nugget and a magical, possibility here that whatever percentage of the person's problem is affiliated with toxicity could create an improvement that is substantial enough where the instability that they potentially have that may or may not be touched at all by this protocol is a part of the problem and not the whole problem, which would be wonderful for people to be able to have that benefit of improvement if a portion of their problem is due to inflammation and toxicity, not just instability.
Right. Well, I know my upper cervical chiropractor, when I got my diagnosis, was like, oh, now it all makes sense. It just made sense why I wasn't holding. And, but sometimes we need somebody else. Like when I see people, I see toxicity now because of my journey. So that's what I see, but somebody else has a different journey and has a different value to bring, to that person. But that's what I see when I see people now. I'm thinking about what's their toxic bucket like, but nourishment is also key just to supporting the ligaments, the tissues, and the muscles. And just for repair, nourishment is really key, but the beginning part is detox. So it's always a process, but if people are not living in mold, they should see some positive change. I can't predict if it'll be the ligament change in a month. Usually 90 days is a good framework to see that, but they should see some change in the first 30 days, being more satisfied, having more energy, having better sleep. It's always interesting to see what people will experience because everybody's unique and everybody's different. So I can't predict that. I just know if they're not happy, they can return their products and get their money back. And there's never really any question there.
Okay. Well, I guess one last question. It's not very possible for most people to move from Philadelphia to Arizona to get away from the mold. Is there something within the coaching that you have that would help an individual who's going through this and doesn't have the capacity to leave that dwelling where they've discovered, or you've discovered with them, that there is a likelihood of mold, to mitigate that so that the protocol of detoxification isn't neutralized by the fact that they're constantly around the toxin?
Right. Well, and the truth is I left Pennsylvania because I was disabled and I wanted to be in a one-story home that we could afford. And so I didn't, and actually it turned out there was mold here in my new home. And there's still mold here in my new home. We did some remediation, but my mold was building material. So we can't get rid of the building material. So, I mean, my levels weren't atrocious. There's a scoring system. So number one, supporting the body. You cannot typically take a binder when you're living in mold, because when you recirculate the toxins, you recreate all your symptoms. And that's just part of detox. That's why detox can be uncomfortable. But with food, food is totally safe to do superfoods to detox while people are living in mold. So it depends on the person's level of their home, and I can guide them on testing. But I like to use the ERMI dust cloth test to tell us if there's a problem, because it won't miss. It won't miss if there's a problem. Inspectors can miss. There's lots of different testing methods, but the ERMI dust cloth test picks up 36 different water damage molds in the dust, and you're paying for them to analyze the dust for those water damage molds. It will not tell you where the mold is, but it will tell you how bad a problem it is and what types of molds. So, so there are things people can do, but there's sometimes, like some of your clients that I have seen, I've said that my recommendation would be to look into leaving. So, but sometimes people don't make that decision right away. It's a process to make that decision. And this protocol supports the body, in decreasing inflammation. And then you have, people have to decide if they want to remediate or if they want to leave. But again, it's all about numbers, and everybody's body is different. So my numbers aren't awful, but a lot of my patients that I deal with, their numbers are 3 times higher in terms of mold levels in their home than mine are. So yeah, it's very unique person to person, and how it expresses itself symptom-wise is very unique.
Exactly. This is very fascinating. Thanks for doing this with me and shining some light on this, because it's been a curiosity of mine for quite a while. And it's nice to see the results of this process in you. And I'm also really curious about seeing some of the results, similar results in some of the other patients that I have that you are dealing with currently.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I'm really passionate about, people getting to the root of what's going on. And they're lucky to have a practitioner who, cares and wants them to get to the root and have the best results for themselves too.
Amazing. Thank you very much. And so we'll add all the contact information and